You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. I am super excited about my guest today, Rashid Williams. Rashid is currently out on tour with John Legend, and he plays with an amazing bunch of artists, including Common, Jill Scott, J. Cole, and many others. I'm going to talk to Rashid today about getting his start in music very young, all of the people that have been there for him along the way, how he made it through the pandemic and playing music, and what he is up to now. So come along with me as I catch up with Rashid Williams. Rashid, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor. You've had some really heavy hitters here, so I'm happy.
Oh my gosh! Well, yeah, and you belong right in that crowd. So thank you for.
Argue that. I appreciate it.
It's great to see you. It's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, it's been too long, and pandemic vibes. You don't really see anybody anymore unless it's on the screen. So I'll take what I can get.
I will too. We're very thankful for technology these days.
100%.
Absolutely. And where are you right now? You are somewhere in...
I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
We have a show here tonight. I'm on the Bigger Love tour with John Legend right now. So we played Dallas last night. It was a great show. We had fun. And yeah, tonight we played Tulsa and then fly to Jacksonville tomorrow. So it's different, but it's still good. I'm still enjoying being a drummer, and the music is great. This is one of the best shows we've done, in my opinion, in the time I've been with him. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. What is the vibe like now with things being so different out there on the road?
It's something that we would have never guessed. We test very often. I think every other day, and if we fly, then we have to test like a different kind of test. So you have the PCR test, you have the antigen test. We do both, depending on how much traveling we've done. The other part of this is that our in venues is a whole different way than what we've ever seen or thought that this thing would be like. Legitimately, if you're not in the bubble, our touring bubble, you're not back there. You're not around us. Mm-hmm. And I commend our team because they make sure that we stay safe. So I'm all about it. I'm totally like, do what you got to do. I'll do my test. I'll wear my mask. Whatever has to happen, I'm cool with it, because at the end of the day, we just want to be able to continue the tour. And so many tours have been getting canceled for dates, and like, I can't tell you how many times we're at a hotel somewhere and we meet band members of a band where some of the band members got COVID, and they're like, oh, such and such is up in their room. They've been here for 8 days already because we all have to quarantine now. We have to stay in one space. Right. Like, even if some guys are testing negative, they still have to stay in one space. So it's intense. It's very, very intense.
Yes, I bet. And I know that the feeling backstage is so different now. There's not that all the people that come to see everybody and catch up with everyone in every city and spend time together. You have a lot of people in close quarters and lots of hugs and all that stuff. And it's just so different.
Tons of fist bumps.
Yes.
Fist bumps and hand sanitizer. Yeah. That's what backstage looks like now.
Right. And fist bumps are good, right? I mean, it's good.
It's better than nothing. I think that this is a time in life where you can't, like, beggars can't be choosers. You got to just say, hey, listen, I will take going through all the protocols if it means I get to have human interaction and play in front of people again.
Yes.
You can't say like, oh, I don't want to do it like this. No, it's like, this is, we got to do it right now. And it's a real beautiful thing to see just the happiness on people's faces. You can tell that for a lot of people, especially the folks that we've been seeing, a lot of these people are like posting online. This is their first concert, their first public outing since the pandemic situation happened. And it's like, I'm honored to be part of, some of these folks' first show. So, and I get to be the
Yes.
drummer to make people dance, which is always the goal.
Right, exactly. You're making people really happy. And I was saying the other day, we all have the story of our first concert, right? The first concert we ever went to, the first time we saw live music. And I think people have another story, or they have two more stories. So you have your first concert you ever went to. You have your last concert before the quarantine that you remember. And then you have the first concert that you've gone to back since everything has been opened up and people are touring again. So it's a different world now.
Yeah, I think in the other part, I think people are actually gaining hope from this. We were just talking about this on the bus the other day. It was like the question of should we do shows, right? Like that's a thing. That's a common question that I'm sure all the promoters, all the artists, all the management staff, like everybody's having those questions. The thing is, at some point, you got to say, well, we have to do shows because if we don't, it leaves no hope for anything. It's like, okay, live music is never going to come back. And that is just like, even saying that out loud is like, what? That just doesn't make sense. So it's a really hopeful thing to see that like we're actually pulling this thing off, and it's happening in the most beautiful way. Watching people smile, watching people stand up and dance and not feel weird about like who they're next to. You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty cool thing to just witness it like firsthand. So yeah, I'll go through the protocols. I'll do the test. It's no big deal.
I love it. It's so great. So, okay. Speaking of live music and how it makes people happy and all of that, I want to talk about you and your kind of journey into music. And I know you started playing drums very young. You were like 3 years old, something like that.
The way I tell people is I do not remember learning how to play.
Wow.
I don't remember learning. Like if somebody was to say, what was your first drum lesson? I do not know. I know that as long as I can remember, I had sticks in my hand. That's kind of just the thing. So yeah, I was pretty young. My parents said 3. I don't know if I age 3, but they tell me 3. Yeah, you were 3. That'd be cool.
3. You were 3. And you started playing in church, right? And so kind of came up. And when did you start, playing kind of out in bands for the first time? Because you were pretty young then as well, right?
Yeah. So my first, all right. So I can remember maybe from like 5 or 6 on. I played at a church that my whole family went to in Jersey City, which is where I was born. And the church that we went to, for lack of better ways of saying it, we'll just say wasn't as progressive as what maybe I think my parents wanted me to be a part of, at least musically. And so what ended up happening was my oldest sister is an incredible singer. And at that time, she was also trying to sing out more and do more. So she wanted to join this community choir closer to where we lived in South Jersey. And I went to the audition, with her, my mom, and myself. And I used to stuff drumsticks up my sleeve so I can still have my sticks with me, but it wasn't like as corny as carrying them around. I don't know why I thought that was a better way to do it, but that's how I did it.
I like it.
Yeah, like I'm talking super like pullover, football jacket, and I got sticks stuffed up my sleeve. So yeah, I did that. And it just so happened that there wasn't a drummer playing. It was just a woman on an organ because the auditions were at a church. So my mom asked this lady, she's like, well, my son plays drums. Mind you, I'm 9 years old by this point. She's like, well, my son plays drums, you should let him play because he's good. So she was like, well, let's see. So I pull my sticks out my sleeve and everybody's looking at me like that was weird. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And the organist, a woman named Cindy Barber, which is so significant in my whole past and my story musically. She starts playing all these different things and seeing if I can follow her. and everything, tempo changes, song changes, whatever. And I think at one point she like turned around and looked back like, oh, he can actually play. So yeah, she ended up asking me to play for the choir. That was the thing. It was, well, can he play for the choir? He's really young, but his older sister's here, so they can come to all the rehearsals and all the, services together. And that then morphed into me playing at that actual church 9 years old. So my parents, I give them all the credit, all the props, because we're talking sending your 9-year-old son to go play at a church when you're not even there. Like, somebody will come pick me up in the morning, bring me back after service was done that Sunday. If I remember correctly, I was doing like 2 Sundays a month. It was like second and fourth Sunday or something like that. And yeah, like that was my first like, hey, here's, more than $10 to play, and you get to get a cassette tape with all the music and you got to learn it. And this is 9-year-old me, you know what I'm saying? So you're a mother. You can imagine at some point I'm crying my eyes out because I don't want to go to rehearsal.
Yeah.
And my parents are like, but you told them you would be there. So you got to do it. You wanted this. And if you really, truly want this, you have to prove it. You have to put the work in, work ethic is early. So from there, this is 9, so I did that from like 9 to 12. I played at that church and with that choir. 12 came around, and by this point I had decided, I always tell people, I watched Janet Jackson's Velvet Rope on HBO, and Lil Jon Roberts was on drums. And I was like, I want to be a drummer full time. I'm trying to do that, right? And also, what was happening around that time was Usher's Live in Chattanooga, which I later learned Usher was opening for Janet on the Velvet Rope tour. So, looking at Brian Fraser Moore play the Usher show and then Little John playing the Janet show, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is what I'm doing the rest of my life. So by that point, I had created a bit of notoriety in the area for this young kid that was playing, with this traveling choir. And that's when I started getting more like local group offers. It was like, hey man, we want you to play for our group. And the first one was a group called Armageddon, which I'm still cool with these guys to this day, which is so beautiful. But yeah, like the leader of the group, a guy named BJ, he had to like sit down and meet with my parents, because at this point I'm like 12 or 13 years old. And my folks were like, look, this is crucial time for our son. We're not just letting him leave the house with anybody.
Right.
Like, he has school and you rehearse at night. And, I already wasn't into school anyway. So they were like, we're not giving him reasons to not pay attention. So I started playing with this group, Armageddon. And that was probably when stuff started really like unraveling into like, okay, this is a thing. Like, I made the decision that this is what I want to do. People are actually starting to know who Rashid is. Like, I'm going to churches and folks are recognizing me. And that 12, 13 years old, that was a big deal. It was like, oh, wow, these guys know who I am. And, they expect me to start. So it was like, that was the beginning. That was like, that stretch from like 9 to 13 was the beginning of what now turned into everything I'm doing now. So
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's something weird about telling people that I was 9 years old making money as a drummer. I'm sure tons of child labor laws. I'm sure.
We won't talk about that though.
Leave that out.
But really, like, credit to your parents too for supporting and teaching you about honoring your commitment and all of that. And I love your parents so much. They have a special place in my heart too.
Yeah. But like, this supported me all the way to this day. Like, it's so crazy that to talk about the support that I got from them, and then to think about, well, when I came to Zildjian, when I was a Zildjian artist, and we drove up from Jersey to Boston, And my
Yes.
parents were right there. It was like, oh no, we're not going to support this moment. Like we're going to be
Right.
here and be a part of it and be present with it. Which is actually the first time we met. So
Yes,
uh,
it was. And
yeah,
how old were you then? I forget. You were young though, like
20.
18?
No, I had to be in my early 20s because by this
Were
point,
you? Okay.
and
Okay.
that was the interesting thing about it because I remember, and I'm sure you remember this. We had done everything, and like it's something about the first time you walk into a cymbal company or a factory, and you see that welcome Rashid Williams, right? And
Yes.
then like we're back there, and you guys rolled out the red carpet for me. It was great. And then remember, like a blizzard happened that day.
Yes.
While we're inside, like playing cymbals and doing all the cool things, a complete blizzard happens outside. So I'm sure you also remember my parents looking at me like, okay, do they have a shovel so you can shovel our car out? Because
Yes.
they were like, we don't care that you just did all this cool stuff as a drum artist. Like, that's what's up, but you need to shovel out the car so that we can drive.
Absolutely.
I went from signing a contract to getting the snow out the way, which was, just a further point of like, they will support it all and still make sure I remain to be their son, keeping me humble.
For
So
sure.
that
Yes.
day was a day that's forever embedded into my memory.
Mine too. Mine too. I remember you driving up, and we knew there was supposed to be a storm, but I think it ended up being way worse than we realized, right?
So
Like way worse. And
yeah,
so you drove up, and I was just, really psyched to meet you and help you find your sounds. And
yeah.
we had a blast, and really like spent the whole day just picking cymbals and
Well,
talking
yeah.
about different sounds.
By the time we went outside, it was 2 feet of snow out there.
There was like 2 feet of snow on the ground.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It was so unreal. I was like, what is happening today?
Yes. And I do remember that. Your mom was like, okay, ask them for a shovel so you can shovel us out. And I was like, that is so important. It's so important because, you
Yeah.
know, I feel like I've seen so many really young, talented musicians, actors, actresses, kind of let the parents let the kids get the ego, and then it kind of just spirals from there. And it was just so important that they did that for you, even though
Yeah, they did a great job. They did a
yeah.
great job. I'm forever thankful to them for that. Even to this
Mhm.
day, like, I mean, the cool part is that I think I've never really been, or rather, I'll say I do my best to maintain the humble position because
Mhm.
in our profession, sometimes you can't be humble. Sometimes you have to be like, no, this is what I deserve. This is what I want. Period.
Yes.
I try to always maintain the humble position, and my parents are really good at making sure that if they feel that I'm not maintaining that position,
Mhm.
they will remind me often.
Yes.
Like, hey, listen, don't forget where you came from.
No.
And I'm forever thankful for that because I think that those are the parts of our success that nobody ever talks about. Like knowing when to pick it up and put it down because
Mhm.
you have to have somebody in your life that's going to pull your coattail and say, hey, listen, like, slow down. Remember this. Remember the young kid who stuffed the sticks up his sleeve. And it's funny because a lot of the changes that I more recently made in the gear I'm playing and the companies that I'm a part of, the families I'm a part of, was based on remembering that. It was big on like, get off the machine, get out of the machine, and get back to like the organic world that I remember as a child.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's cool to have that constant kind of, hey man, come back down. We here. And
Right,
don't forget.
right. And I'm sure that actually helped in the past year and a half when,
Yeah.
your reality, like what you knew as reality in this world of music was completely changed and paused. And then you have to figure out a different way to do what you do and stay sane about it, So
Yeah. That's the thing.
being
I think
grounded is a good thing.
we went from, and I guess in the music community, I'm sure it's interesting to go from, okay, my purpose in this situation is to do this. So like I was on tour when everything happened. I was out with Jill Scott and we were having a great tour. And it's like, I'm the musical director. This is her 20th anniversary of her first album. We're doing like, it was just incredible. And then it all gets snatched from under you. And then the first thing you say to yourself is, okay, what am I going to do without the drums? Like, what am I going to do without a pair of sticks in my hand? And some people say, oh, you produce. Well, we were already producing music. That wasn't something that was like, oh, now you do this. It's like, well, that's going to be able to continue because I could do that at home. But what about this whole other thing that like is an integral part of my lifestyle? You know what I'm saying? That expression is massive. So I commend all musicians because it wasn't like a 9 to 5 where the job was like, hey, work from home, we'll send you money still, and we'll just put you on what was the thing called where they
furlough.
Furlough, that's what it was. We'll just furlough you for a little while. No. This was like, hey guys, we're shutting down everything. You got to go home. Oh, by the way, we're not paying any. Like, some artists were like, we're not paying anybody for anything. Then you had other really amazing artists. I'm fortunate enough to work for one of them. That was like, I'm going to take care of my people. I'm going to make sure that you are good. And that was, refreshing. But at the same time, we also learned the value of actually playing music and not just the money. It's like, cool. And truth be told, and this is the blessed part of this is me and my family were fine financially. It was me realizing that I didn't have the creative outlet. That was the part. It was like, what am I supposed to do today? Like, what am I gonna do? I'm cool. I'm gonna get up. I started making gourmet meals at home. It was like, I have nothing to do. I bought a camera so that I can at least still be creative and go outside and just take pictures of birds and weird looking dragonflies.
Right. Yeah, because that's what you do. Like your purpose is in creating music and bringing it to people,
Yep.
And so what do you do when that isn't an option or when that option is changed? I think this pandemic definitely gave a lot of people a big appreciation for their outlet, their creative outlet. And it kind of changed the landscape a bit, but I'm just so happy that you're back out there, you're touring, back bringing music to everyone. And I did see, like, during the pandemic, I saw some of the things you were doing that looked super cool and you were posting, and I'm not sure if some of this happened before, but you had some like NPR Tiny Desk concert series postings. One of them was remote, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So when the pandemic hit, immediately, like I said, I was telling you earlier, I came home on March 13th. That's the day I got home. And I think we kind of sat still from like March into April. May came around. And when May came around, it was like, okay, the phone finally rings and says, it was John, actually. It was like, okay, John has some virtual stuff he wants to do. We're going to see if we can pull this off. And it was like, huh? Like, what do you mean get a camera and set up a camera or something? They're like, you can use your iPhone. Like, it's, just trying to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And the first one was good. The first one was very good. It was weird, but it was good. And then once we did that, they were like, okay, and this is why I do appreciate John Legend and his camp. They're really incredible at kind of pushing some limits. And, by June or July, they were like, okay, we're going to fly some folks out to LA because John needed to do a tiny desk. And we had done some virtual things, and they were like, let's just see like what happens. And I never forget getting to the hotel and finding out that we were the only, like 6 of us, the only guests in that whole entire hotel.
Wow.
And they were like, we haven't had a guest here, so bear with us. restaurant and bar are closed, room service only. It was in LA, so the climate there was shut down, like very shut down. Like there's nothing open for dine in, like everything is takeout. Like it was just different from anything we've ever experienced. So we go out there and we ended up doing a bunch of stuff. Like I remember them having 2 sets like facing each other. So like we would perform on this set for this TV show, then perform on this set for this TV show while they're changing over the other set. And one of those was NPR Tiny Desk. And yeah, that's been the vibe, you know? It was like I did that one with John, and then we did one earlier this year with Rick Ross. That was also in a remote spot. And then we did Fat Joe recently as well, which was from a remote spot. I think they're calling it Tiny Desk from Home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the whole get back into it vibe has been different. Gave me a whole new appreciation for a tour bus and a hotel room, I'll tell you that much.
I bet.
Yeah, but it's like to actually be out here touring, it's kind of like old, and my body cannot take some of what it took years ago.
Yes.
And then realizing just how much sitting still for a year affects like everything, like your whole posture. And playing more daily and every other day is a whole different thing now. It's a whole different vibe. So yeah, it was my life all last year. I got a lot of recording done. That was cool.
Yes. Yeah, that is a good thing for sure. It is weird though. I mean, I do have this conversation often lately where now that people are getting back out on the road, the realization of how much you did before, how hard you worked before, it's like even it's a little bit shocking. Like and maybe we were doing too much. Like like
yeah, that's so true. I think that's exactly what it is. It was 27.
Like life was too fast before almost. Like it slowed down to a pace where it made you realize just how fast you were moving and maybe not even like realizing it, right?
1,000,000%. Like I often go back to, I think it was 2017 or 2018. And I remember that year I had toured with I did a clinic tour that year. I toured with Jill Scott, I toured with John Legend, and I toured with Common all in the same year. And at some point, those were all kind of intertwined. Like I played a festival like on a Friday with Jill, then on a Saturday with John, then Sunday would be Common. Like it literally same festival. And it was insane.
Yes.
So like to think now about that, I'm like, what was I doing?
Right.
How was I functioning on barely any sleep? Now I'm like, I actually know how to get into bed and go to sleep at night.
Right.
It was weird not to get my rest.
Right. I know. Some of us have been spoiled by like normal life, like,
normal home life,
It's so strange. But I do remember like I would call you and be like, okay, where are you? Where in the world are you? Who are you playing with right now? Because it was like that. And, speaking of all those different musicians, Common and Jill Scott and John Legend and J. Cole and just all the work that you've done, how is it to go from one thing to the other like that, to play a festival with 3 different, styles and 3 different feels, like that kind of thing? How do you do that?
The word that does come to mind, I will not use because the language is harsh.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, I think that it's hard, number one. Let's be clear. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. However, I think that success is sometimes built in realizing the blessing side of a situation and not the headache side of a situation. So with me, it's like just separate it all in my mind, put everything in this little compartment and in this little slot and listen to the show before it's time to play it, kind of thing. Because the blessed part of it is how many guys can say that they pulled this off. or if he even had the opportunity to pull this off.
Sure.
The workhorse side of it is, okay, tonight is a John Legend show. I am going to play this show. I am going to play his show. I am going to play his show. I'm going to play his show. Cool. Show is done. Let me get a good night's rest. Tomorrow morning, playing for Joe Scott. Same festival, same stage. Okay. Let me play her show because I'm about to play her show. Oh, her show. Let me listen to her show because I'm about to play her show. Like, you guys just keep telling yourself, you know?
Sure.
And then finally, if there is a 3-dayer, which it's happened before, where like the next day I'm doing like Common, where it's like, okay, now I'm back to, it's hip hop now. Now this is, it's rap. I gotta play his show. And you know, and it actually gets a little fun when you start to get into the personality, like my personal perspective of my personality. Like, okay, I get to be 3 different people, 3 different stages. I often say like John is more of, I wouldn't call it corporate, but it's like that down home R&B sound, and with the tinge of pop in there as well. Jill, I call that savage R&B, like because you know her stage is like no backing tracks, just out there and just go. So you know I call that savage R&B, like where I get to be a whole different person there. And then Common is like more definite hip hop, definite rap, but that's a whole different person in and of itself. So I kind of get to be 3 different people over 3 different days. And then if I'm lucky to have some clinics around all of that, then I also get to go be the complete version of me. Like to its truest form with all my orchestral arrangements and my tracks and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of really waking up in the morning and saying, whose gig am I doing today? This person. Focus on that person. Only that person. Don't focus on anything else. And then the next day, do it all over again.
That's so great. So just basically a mindset change.
Yeah.
And
got to be able to shift. I mean, I often say a perfect example of this is Brian Fraser Moore. He is one of those drummers that can play any style of music, anytime. And you wonder, like, how did you just do that gig yesterday, this gig today? Thomas Pridgen is another one. How did you do the Mars Volta one day and then, like, was in the studio with this R&B artist? Or, you know, like, this is all, like, what just happened? Like, how are you doing rock and jazz at the same time?
Right.
It's just, I think it's just a shift in mentality. It's a shift in being able to say, like, hey, today, this is the job.
Right. Absolutely. And I like that you, you know, your personality lends itself to that too, because you care to get yourself into that mindset. And I'm sure that the artists that you work with are really grateful for your personality and the way that you carry yourself and how you are, you know, a humble person and, you know, just like easy to work with. So.
Well, you know, they say, and I think some of the greatest advice, I think it's Adam Blackstone who said this to me. He says, you're on stage for at most 2 hours a night. You keeping your job is based on what you do the other 22 hours in that day. I was like, wow, that's profound, because a lot of musicians, drummers in particular, do not realize that nobody cares how great of a drummer you are. Like in reality, right? Like there's great drummers everywhere. People want to like you. People want to, you know, be like, oh, I want to work with Rashid, or I want to work with Brian, or I want to work with Little John. Like they want to be around you. And that's why I love, like, I got to shout out the guys who I see doing it, like Mike Mitchell. Like I see Mike Mitchell in a space where they're like, I want to play the gig with him. 1, he's incredible. 2, he's a great guy. Like you want to hang out with him. Same with guys like Thomas Pridgen. Same with guys like Devin Taylor. Same with guys like my man Justin Faulkner. Like these are guys that are like, I want to play the gig with you, not just, oh, I'm just stuck with you for this. And, you know, let's just get it out the way.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you got big homies that have passed that mentality down, I think Brian is one of the most likable guys that I've ever met, who's a drummer.
Sweet.
Yeah, like he's literally like one of the most likable guys. It's like,
Yes.
if
Yeah.
Brian's got a problem with you, I will most likely have a problem because like, he's not the kind of guy that everybody has a problem with. So if he has a problem with you and you have a problem with him, something's not right.
That's a good like litmus test for, if
Yeah.
you're going to get along with someone. If Brian Fraser Moore likes you and you get along, then you're good.
You're in a good space.
Right.
Me and Brian have had conversations with people who remain nameless, but he's been like, yeah, I don't like that person. I'm like, me either. I knew it wasn't just me. Literally, like, I knew it wasn't just me. So no, it's an interesting thing, but you got to be likable.
I agree. Yes, I always give that advice, even on the other side of it, in like working in the music industry, business side of it.
Yeah.
I always say that to anyone who's looking to get into the industry, just be a good person. Just be likable. Like
It's a shame that has to be said. But
right? I know.
By the way, be kind.
Be kind.
Be
Yeah.
easygoing. Be fun. Yeah. Don't be too stressed. And nobody likes a person who brings stress to the environment. So
right.
it's literally one of those things where we've all experienced it, where you work with somebody that you really don't get along with. It brings so much more pressure and negative energy to a situation that should be all positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas when you were the team that you just like all gel and you're working toward a common goal and everyone's a good person, like what you accomplish in that is unbeatable, right?
That is literally what I'm experiencing right now. Like,
oh, I
this
love
tour
that.
we're on right now is, like I said, at least twice a day. I feel like the best tour I've been on with John since starting with John in 2008. Like, this tour collectively, everybody's doing their job. It's so crazy for me to think about how easy it is. Like, it's really easy. And I feel like this is what it's supposed to be like. I often joke around with Man, and I'm like, bro, this is the easiest tour we've ever done together. And we've been on quite a few tours together with different artists. And it's just like, this is the easiest thing we've done. This is easy breezy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. And shout out to Man too.
Super shout out.
Absolute Man Philly. We were talking earlier and I have this thing where he just seems to always be there. Like all of a sudden, I go to a show and he's there and I didn't know, or he would come with you and visit when I was at Zildjian and turn around and there's Man. So. And
it's crazy because I'll tell you this much. He's probably one of the most giving people in terms of opportunities, freely giving. You know what I mean? There's a lot of politics in this industry. I think Man has done an incredible job at keeping the politics to the side, always picking the best person for the job, and always making sure that he communicates what he wants in the situation. I think that's what makes a really great musical director. And he and I, we have a massive friendship and brotherhood outside of like the gig. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I've known Man since we were teenagers. So our world collided in a way that nobody ever saw coming very early in life. And then to now be, in our 30s, mid 30s, it's like, whoa, this is, something crazy to say, like, dude, he's been the same hard worker since I met him. You know what I'm saying? He's been this same, let's go get it. Like, let's go get it. Whatever it is at the moment, let's go get it. He's been that same guy since I met him. So it's magical to kind of sit back now and be like, wow, man, my brother's really doing it out here. And we've created such a bond that, like people always say, well, Man calls you first. I'm like, sometimes he doesn't. Because sometimes I'm not the call for the gig. There have been times Man will call me and say, yo, man, I'm calling such and such because I just think they will be the best person for the gig. Like, of course I respect that. That's what it should be.
Sure.
It just so happens that you may or may not have seen me and Man play a few Tiny Desks together.
Yes.
You might have seen us do Chromeo. You might have saw us do John. And you might have saw us do Fat Joe. Just so happens that we do work really well together, you know?
That's so true. And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, Man Philly is John Legend's musical director and fantastic musician. But that's so important. And I don't think anyone should see anything negative in that, because when you gel with someone like that, you know, that's when magic is created. And
that's when it's an unbreakable bond.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, with this group out on tour right now, and you guys are just like locked in, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's special. And you know, this tour, John's doing something that I think is really incredible. He's been bringing, so he does the voice. He's been bringing his past contestants, his past team, like folks when we're in their cities or close to their cities, he's been bringing them out to do a song with him, which is like massive, right? Like, what artist is actually calling you back after doing these shows and saying, yo, I want to bring you out during my show, and actually taking the time to show up in sound check, rehearse the song with you. Like, John goes above and beyond, and having Man there makes it super easy, because he's like, oh, well, this is how we're going to do it. Boom, boom, bam. But this tour is that tour, and it's really cool because like some of these songs that we're doing, they're all covers, some of them which some of us never played before. Like, you know, it's a lot of stuff that we played. I'm like, I never thought I'd be playing this song on stage.
Yeah.
However, everybody learns their parts. They come in, like, it's crazy to say Man sends us the music on, say, a Monday for a Wednesday show. Yo, this is the song we're doing with John. John will come to sound check. We'll go through it once or twice. Everybody will be good, and everybody be on point.
Mm-hmm.
So work with a group of people that's that efficient is like dream come true.
Absolutely.
Nobody's standing there like, oh, no, what was that this or what was not? It's like, all right, guys, we're going to start from the top. Count it off. Cool. Boom. Done. John comes in. John's like, all right, everybody good? Let's run through it. Like, it's literally the smoothest running situation I've been a part of since I started touring. It's incredible.
I love that. And your experience way back when you were a kid, getting that tape for the church, right? And like learning that music. I bet it comes back around now because you're a pro. Yeah,
and I tell you what, I realized just how tough it was to learn music from a cassette tape.
Yes. Yes.
Like, rewinding alone, just let's go back to the top of the song.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta guess where that is. It's like, I don't know. I'm sure people can relate, but some of the younger folks probably can't. You know, they had the iPod and all that kind of stuff. But to learn music from a cassette tape is rough. So
it is so rough.
Yeah, being able to just go on my phone and be like, okay, cool, this is the song. Let me go to my Apple Music or my Spotify or whatever, and just boom, click on the song. I can rewind and play certain parts back. It's like, okay, this is perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's much easier. So yeah, that was boot camp. That was hardcore boot camp.
Right? But it prepped you.
Yeah, now we're like, oh, this. I can do this. I can handle this.
Yes. I sympathize with the cassette thing. I feel like that's a topic that keeps coming up in these conversations, but it's like so relevant because the rewinding and the stopping and trying to get it at the right spot, and the batteries that you used up in your Walkman or your boom box or whatever, like. Yeah. But nowadays, like cassettes are coming back, and it's like a thing, and kids are buying cassette tapes.
Yeah, and they probably think that they're doing something that's never been done before. Yeah. No. Everything always comes full circle. We've done this.
Always, yes, exactly.
I mean, I remember like with CDs, like burning CDs was the thing.
Yeah.
You get frustrated if somebody gave you a cassette instead of burning you a CD. It's like, well, why don't you just burn me a CD where I could hit the track? Track button, get to the next song. And some people will burn you a CD and not put the tracks in there. So now you got this long CD. Like,
that didn't work. That was not good. No.
It was never good. It was never, ever good. So we've been thankful for our progressions in technology.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And how far it's come in such a short amount of time. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just a note about burning CDs. I don't know if you remember this, but like how long it would take to burn a CD and like the noise that your computer would make with the tower, because we all had like, we didn't have laptops or any of that. It was like the tower computer, and you put the CD in and it would like sound like it was going to blast off into outer space as it was burning it.
It's something that to this day I'm just like, if you can think about those times, every time you pick up your phone and go onto Apple Music or Spotify, your appreciation for click and play will be so different.
So good.
I found one of my old iPods recently too. And I was like, I wonder if I plug this up, one, what music is going to be on there? Two, will it still work in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't find a charger for it because it's different.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder if like the plug, the plugs and the ports and all that, like, are.
I didn't even find a charger that worked for that thing. I did look because I feel like my first iPod I brought while I was on tour with Guapole, maybe. I was like 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably spent what I thought was a lot of money on it just so that I could be up with the times.
Yes.
And I know, funny fact, to go back to Man Man is how I brought my first iPhone. Because when I got the John Legend gig, he was like, yo, man, you got to get a phone like that's up to date. Like you can't, because I had like a little, something simple. And he was like, nah, man, like you're going to get emails and stuff that you're going to have to like listen to music and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you need to get an iPhone. I was like, I want an iPhone.
Yeah.
We were in Kansas City. I will never forget going to the Apple store and buying an iPhone and telling Man that day, like, so I did it, okay? What do you want from me? And he's like, nah, you're going to be glad you did this. So, yeah, it's a very interesting world with these devices.
That's too funny. And now, like we said, like they're going back. I saw a commercial for a phone that like flips in half. It looks like an iPhone, but it flips in half. And I'm like, so like a flip phone?
Are we calling this a flip phone still? Or are we,
Right? How does that? I don't know. Anyway, it always goes back. But so you are out on tour with John Legend right now, but you have some things local because you're in Orlando now. So tell us about the Will's Pub gigs.
So when I moved to Orlando, I did not plan on really being a musician there. I moved there for life reasons, to start life, you know what I mean, in a different regard. So, yeah, let's just say that after you sit in the house for a year and not play drums, you start to really, really, really question what you want to do with your talents and with your gifts. So shout out to Mike Mitchell in this regard, because Mike was the first show that I went to like in slightly ending pandemic, and it's still not over. So I'll say when things were opening in Florida and music venues were opening, I saw that he was going to be in town playing at Will's Pub. And I was like, yo, I got to come check you out because I haven't been in a room and just listened to live music like outside of me being the drummer, you know what I'm saying? Or me doing a Tiny Desk or something like that. So yeah, shout out to Mike, because it was so inspiring to see him powering through this pandemic life. And he was like, yo, we're going to do what we got to do. And I went to the show at Will's Pub. I watched him play. And then after I watched him play, he introduced me to the promoter. And he was like Mike literally at one point is on the microphone, because Mike. So yeah, you can visualize this.
Okay.
He's like, y'all got Rashid Williams here and nobody knows. And I'm sitting there like, that's not their fault. It's my fault. I never know. So at some point he introduced me to the promoter. He's like, yo, you guys got to know each other. So we got to talking, and I was like, yo, something that I do see as a bit of a gap in the music scene in Orlando is improvisational playing, where it's not learning the cover songs for the Disney gig or for the wedding band gig or for, and that's how a lot of these guys work. And I commend it. I love it. But having a platform where people can just be more creative, it was what I saw as a bit of a gap. So we got to talking. And the first one I did started off as, we called it like, because I did something at a place called the New Standard, which shout out to Nate New Standard as well. And we called it like grooving with Rashid Williams. We had nothing better else to call it, right? So I did a thing there, and then I did a thing at Will's Pub with Montgomery Drive, and we called it like a night with Rashid Williams. It was weird. So fast forward to me having a conversation with a gentleman named Marshall, who owns a promotion company in Orlando called Montgomery Drive. And I'm sitting in the car with Man.
Everywhere. He's everywhere.
Literally, I'm like, maybe Sarah's on to something with this. He said, so Marshall is telling me on his call, and I'm on speaker because Man was picking me up from the airport in Philly, actually. And we were like headed back to his house. I was staying for a few days. So Marshall's like, hey, man, we got to get you a band name. Because at this point, I started like playing Monday nights, and I was doing stuff at the Standard, and it was like building this little attention to me. And Marshall's like, we got to get your name, And the name of my company is Little Fat Jimmy. So everybody knows that. So Man's in the car, and he's like, put him on hold. And I'm like, yo, Marshall, hold on 1 second. Put him on hold. And Man goes, yo, with the kind of music you're doing and with what you enjoy, just call it the LFJ Orchestra. And I was like, I like that. Literally, no lie. We're in the car driving. I'm like, I like that. Hey, Marshall. So yeah, it'll just be Rashid Williams and the LFJ Orchestra. And he was like, I like it. I was like, me too. My own boy told me that. Like this is the whole true story, right? So once we did that, I started coining that and we started branding that. So we started making this Monday night at Will's thing a once a month thing that we still do. I did one last month. I went home for a couple of days and we had a show there. And it's been really cool to watch the audiences grow and get bigger. I think the first one might have had like 13 people. Because everybody's like, who's this Rashid guy? Like, we don't know him. And mind you, Will's is like a punk rock dive bar. So,
okay, yeah.
They're like, this R&B drummer. And then like, I get to play all the chops that I never get to play anywhere else. And, channel my inner Thomas Pridgeon a little bit. And they're like, oh, wow, like we kind of like this stuff. So we've been doing it every month. October 25th is the next one, our pre-Halloween show and, costume party. But it's been really cool, one, to play music for people who genuinely just want to hear good music. Two, it's been really great to play a lot of original music. And now kind of weirdly having a band is like, I don't know when the band thing happened, but I have a set group of guys that I call, and these guys are a part of the LFJ Orchestra. And fun fact, one of the guys who are part of the LFJ Orchestra was in the band that I first played with, that band Armageddon, that when I was like 13 years old. It was his brother's group. So he was the keyboard player and musical director. So when I started my band and he lives in Florida, I called him and I was like, yo, would you be down to like do this with me? And he was like, let me think about it. And he literally texted me like 2 minutes later, like, I'm in.
Yeah.
So everything full circle, like it's been incredible. When I say being in Orlando has been a bit of a doozy because I never saw that being part of my life. But having this new endeavor with the LFJ Orchestra and with Montgomery Drive and like really building this thing up has been quite the beautiful process.
I love that. And it is such a full circle moment there. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
It's
everybody in the band is from New Jersey except the guitar player.
Wow.
But everybody lives in Orlando.
That's amazing too.
Crazy.
Yeah. I love it. That's so great. And before we go, I just want to ask if you have any advice for, someone who's coming up, starting out, trying to break into the industry at this crazy time, what would you say?
Actually, I do have some advice for those guys. Because right now, what I can say, and I hope a lot of people really catch this, because it's like musicians are not a dime a dozen anymore. You know, I think the pandemic made people get jobs, and they were like not messing with music, too finicky, too up, too down, too left, too right. But we need more folks out here that we can call. I know right now there are going to be opportunities coming up that I'm going to need to have somebody to call. My go-to guy is usually Carlin White. Carlin White plays for J. Cole now. He's busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are names in the hat, and all these guys are gigging now. So my calls are slim. My advice would be, one, prepare. Like, do the local work. Do the, whatever you can get yourself into, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to hire you to a gig if nobody can say that they've ever seen you play. I know social media and YouTube is big, and right now these arrangements are big. The problem with drummers doing these arrangements, that most of them are overplaying the arrangement. So then the question comes up, like me and Man have this conversation all the time. It's like, well, who do we call for this gig? Well, I saw him play an arrangement, but he overplayed it, or she overplayed it. So can they just play music? The only way you find that out is by being able to vouch and call somebody, have somebody vouch for you. So you have to the young man or young woman or who's out there, and they're like, yo, you have to find your local circuit. You have to be on the local scene so that somebody can speak up for you. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to like utilizing social media, hit people like me up, hit people like Man up, because you never know what day we're just going to be sitting there saying, man, and Man, this is how Man says it. He'll be like, Sheed, you can't do the gig, can you? I'm like, nah, bro, I can't, because I'm either here or I'm somewhere else. Like, this doesn't work. I'm like, all right, man. All right, so who we call?
Yes.
Who's to say that same day I'm going to be like, yo, it's crazy because this person just hit me up and they kill him. Like, we should holler at him. Let's see what's up. Let's give him a chance.
Yeah.
And he's always down with those kinds of things. So you have to network. You got to prepare. Like, just be ready. The gig is not about the drums. The gig is about the artist. Mm-hmm. We just complement the music. That is what we're there to do. And we live in a day and age where the drummers want to show up and be the star. And yeah, my advice, prepare, network, be on your scene.
Absolutely. That's such great advice. And for anyone out there listening who wants to come out and see you play, John Legend, tour dates, I'll put some links in the description, and monthly Monday gigs at Will's Pub, right?
Yeah, I would say follow my social media at Rashid Williams on Instagram and just Rashid Williams on Facebook, because I'm always posting, especially to make sure, like with the Orlando stuff, it's like that's a whole different experience. And I always tell folks, if you want to see me like really like just let it all hang out, that's the place to do it.
I love it. Perfect. And I hope to see you soon as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be headed your way soon. So once we wrap this up, I'll get some details and see where you're going to be. Because I think
absolutely
in and out, it'll be fast, but
I'll wave to you in your bubble.
Because that's literally how my life looks now.
I know. And you know what? It's how it has to be, and that's okay. But we will someday in the not so distant future, we'll be able to see each other and give each other a big hug.
Yep, I owe you about 6 of those. So you've been so helpful through all my processes. And it's not too many people I can just call and say, hey, I need your help. I need your advice. And you have been one of the 4.
Oh my gosh.
Like, hey, Sarah, I called you. I was like, hey, this is what I'm going through today. You're like, well, if I were you, this is what and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, really great advice. So I really appreciate you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for saying that. Always here for you. Always. And I appreciate you too.
Oh, well, Sam, this goes both ways. I'm not going anywhere.
All right, Rashid, I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Absolutely. Bye.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.